So we're looking at changing the actual inflatable bladder from within the air tube. So firstly, we're going to release the pressure by pushing in and holding the nozzle down. That's in its open position now. So once all the air's out, we're going to find the zip runner that's located on the tube. That's here. And it's secured with a little plastic zip tie. So we need to take that off, snip that off with a pair of pliers. That allows us to open the tube and reveal the bladder that's inside. So we're going to go right the way along, opening the tube up. At the end of it's a little reinforcement PE section. Make sure that doesn't get caught in the zip tie, in the zipper. And now we can actually see the bladder itself and the tubes where it's attached. Okay, so we take these out. Now, what you can see there is you've got the back of the valve, which you can feel through the actual plastic tube itself, and the front of the valve here. So now you need a spanner to take the actual valve head out. I'll just go and get the spanner. So this is the valve spanner. What we're going to do, we're going to hold the back of the valve, put the spanner in, and then we undo the actual valve itself. Taking the valve section out, and that allows you to take it off the coat. We'll have to do the same again on this side. And then the bladder will come out the tube. So we're now going to cover putting the tube or the bladder back into the sleeve. So what I've done here is I've cut a tube open only for demonstration purposes, just to show you how the valve fits. So inside the actual tube is a separate small section of tubing with a hole in it. The idea is that the back of the bladder, the back of the tube, the valve, sits here, and then that in turn goes inside the tube, so that you've got two layers of TPU bladder around the actual valve's back, so that it protects the tube. It is a bit fiddly, obviously, because I'm doing it now when the tube is separate, but you've got to do this when it's in the tube. But it is really just to show you how it fits. So in there you've got the one section that's cut separately, and you've got the hole in the actual bladder, and then the valve sits there. And then what happens is that the other side of the valve goes through, it screws together, and that actually serves to clamp both the protective section and the bladder itself in to make an airtight seal. So now we'll do that within the bladder. As I say, it is a little bit more fiddly, but I did that to show you what you've got to look for inside. So again, you've got the actual valve back, you've got the protective sheath, then you've got the hole in the bladder itself. So when we go back to this one, here is the actual blowout valve. You can see the backs of the valve are inside the sealed tube. So you've got to position those around manually, which can be a bit of a fiddle, but it's not too difficult. So I'm just getting hold of one of them at the moment. It's inside of its protective coat section. So I'll just basically line the holes up first of all. So there's the two holes now. So I've got the two holes together, and I'm turning the valve round so that I can actually now get the valve positioned over the whole section ready. So you can see you've got this white ring, which is the idea, which gets clamped between the two valves, the valve sections, and holds it into place. So try and match those as closely as you can. Seat that over the valve, and then you get the main valve head itself. You put that in, and obviously it's important not to get the TPU trapped in the threads. So get those together. It is a very fine thread, so you can cross them easily. So just make sure that you've got it in position properly before you actually tighten it up. So I can feel that the screw heads haven't taken yet. So I'll just give it another couple of turns. No, it hasn't. I've got a bit of fabric trap there. So again, it is important to make sure it doesn't get trapped. Pushed it home, and now the threads have actually taken, so I can feel that that's ready to go with the spanner. I'll just give it a few turns just to make sure it's in position, and then what we'll do is we'll do the other section. So again, you've got to get the back of the valve, make sure it's in the inner section protective layer, find the hole in the protective layer and bring that round to this hole here. So again, there we've got both sections in place. We've got the white section over the back of the valve itself. So again, we'll push these home. Again, make sure the threads don't get crossed. Get those taken. So tighten that up again. Okay, so that shows you how to get those into position there. Now, obviously what's got to happen here is we've got to get it into the coat. So I wanted to do that without the coat there so you could see what I was doing. But to get it into the coat, you need to put the coat on first. So I'm going to take those out again. Now you've seen how it works. And we'll do it again, but with the coat in place. But if I'd done that first, you wouldn't see what was happening. So it just makes it a little bit easier for you to see how it works. So what we do is we find the valve end of the coat. Again, with this particular tube, you've got both the internal valve and the external valve. So basically making sure that that now lines up. So we're going to put the tubes in there. As I say, that's why I showed it you before, because you wouldn't see anything. So again, we'll get the tubes into place. And we'll put the first one in. So we're going to locate the back of the bladder there. So this is for the lower section. So we're going to hold that in place. So again, we're going for the lower of the two, so not that one, it's this one. We're going to put that over. So again, it's another section of material. You can see there, they're all lined up. And now we're going to put the actual valve through, and this will hold both the TPU tube, bladder, and the coat into position. So again, locked into position. Get that nice and tightened up. So just going to make sure that the bottom of the tube is aligned with the bottom of that, so it's not twisted, and then tighten it up, holding it in position. And then we've got to get the other one into position. So again, it's a case of getting that inner section which has dropped down the tube. Well, so at least you see what happened. So allow the section to drop down the tube. There we go. So what we do now is got to find the actual back of the bladder, which has also gone down the tube by the looks of things. There it is. That'll come down a lot easier because it's heavier. There we go. Now we've got to get that lined up. So again, find the hole in the reinforcing section. Put the back of the valve through that. And then also line that up with the bladder as well. So now we've got the reinforcing section in place, we've got the outer section in place. We then obviously put the coat section in place. There we go, that's that, got that one into place. Put that one over the top. And then once the two are aligned, we get the valve back into place as well. Just holding that into position with my thumb. Put those in, again get the two tied together. Make sure the threads have taken. Yep, and lock those up. So I'm going to lock them both up tight now. Again, just double check that this is in the right position before you tighten everything up. You want the bottom of the bladder to be in line with the bottom of the coat and everything in line. Side as well. Make sure they're nice and tight, we don't want any air leakage there. Easier to tighten them up now than tighten them up when it's in the tent. That's got everything in place, ready to locate the bladder. So it's a good idea now to actually inflate it and make sure that there's no leaks. Obviously don't overinflate it because it's not in the coat, but at least you can make sure that the valves aren't leaking before you move on to the next stage. So as I said, it's a good idea to test that the valve doesn't have any, the valves are not leaking. And for this, I'm going to inflate it. I'm using one of these electric pumps. You can use the stirrup pump that comes with the tent. But I'm just going to put about 1 psi in to make sure that there's no leaks. There we go. So again, you can see that that's partially inflated. Nothing's bulging out of the side of the valve sections here or here, and I can't hear any leaks. So all's good to go. I'm going to let the air out completely now, and then we'll go about repositioning the TPU bladder within the actual coat itself. You really want all the air to come out, makes it a lot easier. Just allow the air to come out. Go to one end and just squeeze it all out. I'll just lock the valve in the closed position so that the air doesn't move, it doesn't go back in again. So the important thing is to make sure that the bladder is nice and flat and there's no creases in it as it's going through. So, as you can see just here, not only is the coat itself a polyester, you've also got a PU lining throughout the length of the coat, so it's very strong. So you've got to make sure that the reinforcement here covering the zip section at the base is in place. So just spread that out, and then just allow the zip to come along. Again, as you're going, keeping the bladder as flat as you can. Now you'll see there's a seam here, and the idea behind that is it's shaped so that actually the pole makes a slight turn. So once you get to that section, again, make sure it's flat. But you just allow a little bit of extra TPU at this point. Obviously it's got to go around the corner. So making again sure it's flat, just bring up a little bit more, it's like slightly creased, but then again, carry on, making sure that it is flat. But you've just got a little bit of extra TPU there. And zip up at the corner, and then we're back down onto the straight again. So again, as we're going along, put the bladder in flat. Now it comes to the middle section where there's a slight curve again, at the sort of Gothic arch point. So again, what we're going to do, make sure we're flat up to that, but again, add a little bit extra there. Make sure the rest of it is flat. Out the final corner. So again, flat up to the corner. Add a little bit of extra again. And then keep going. And making sure that keeps nice and flat. When you get to the end, you will find that there's always a little bit extra in the TPU tube. It doesn't matter, it can be scrunched up at the bottom. Just again, put it in underneath that reinforcement, get the rest of it as flat as you can, and bring those two zip runners together. Again, make sure that polyester section, the polyethylene cover, is over the zip. That's really to protect the TPU bladder from the metal parts of the zip section. Now, that you must secure with a tie. I won't at the moment because I'm going to go and blow it up, but you must put a tie through that so that it can't be opened up. And obviously once it's under pressure, if you open that, you're going to have a big bang. So again, I'm going to set my pump here to sort of probably 2.5 to 3 psi the first time, just so that the bladder can open up. And then you can start manipulating the coat so to make sure that everything is sitting in the right position. So making sure that the valve is in the open position, so the valve's the furthest out, that allows it to become a one-way valve. If it's in the closed position, it'll just let all the air out the minute you take the bayonet section out. So again, I'm going to set it to just about 2 psi, I think. Disappear off camera while I just lay this out. Just crease the tube, start it again. There are certain areas where we just need to get the creases lined, just twist and manipulate the tube so that they actually disappear and everything becomes smooth as it goes through. And it's important to make sure the corners are nice, so again, just manipulate the tube so that the actual TPU bladder then it goes into place. So just squeezing it and it sits properly. The crease section just here. So again, just move the tube round. Eventually sits into the right position. So what I'll do is I'll put a bit more air in there. Go for 3 this time. There we go. So I like to leave that overnight now to make sure it's not going to go down before I go to the trouble of putting it in the tent. So that shows you how to put the TPU bladder back into the coat.